we understand a sense of purpose here.
Right.
Um, we have an opportunity not only to improve the health of the communities we serve and the people we touch every day, we have an opportunity to do something really important. Um, I think what pulled me here was our CEO saying to me, we had the opportunity to create this national model of what healthcare could be. We had a chance to reinvent things.
Hi, I'm Deirdre Breckenridge. I've spent my entire career helping women to get unstuck, to share their stories, nurture relationships, and to grow their brands. But most of all, to find their voices so they can make a difference. Women Worldwide features the stories of passionate women and the ups and downs of their journeys. With deep insight and advice, let Women Worldwide ignite your passion so you can excel in life. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Worldwide. Thank you so much for showing up and for tuning in wherever you are in this world. We appreciate you. It's because of you our network is growing. And every week we are sharing stories of amazing professionals. I know they make it look easy, but you know what? They're so giving of their time and their hearts and their minds, letting you know that they have the highs and the lows, and they're helping you to get over some of your challenges, because we want to change lives one story at a time, and we also don't ever want you to feel like you're alone. So let's dive into today's topic, which is being a leader in communications and in healthcare communications. What does it take? What are the characteristics? What do you have to do to be a communications leader today? Well, joining me on the show is the perfect guest to discuss communications and healthcare. I have Valerie Simon with me, and Valerie and I go way back. First of all, Valerie is the Chief Marketing Officer, and she's also Vice President of Marketing, Communications, and Public Relations at Atlantic Health System. We met 11 years ago on Twitter. Talk about being a leader in communications, being on Twitter that long ago. And it's led to a friendship, and even a collaboration on Twitter, and getting to know one another and building a relationship. So Valerie is probably one of my favorite communicators and also a dear friend. Valerie, I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. It's always great to get to chat with you.
And there's a lot that I could share about us and how we started our Twitter community and how personally we've grown a relationship and how relationships actually do blossom from social media. But I want to dive in and focus on your work, because you're doing amazing work at Atlantic Health System. How did you choose a career in healthcare and communications?
So it's really interesting, when you ask me that question, I don't think that I necessarily chose a career in healthcare or communications, but I do think it was a series of choices that I made throughout not only my career, but my entire life that led me to this point. And so let me explain what I mean by that. And I think it's important to think about the impact and the power that our choices have, not just those grand, big, stake in the ground choices, but the smaller decisions that we make every day. So when I was in seventh grade, I actually made one of those stake in the ground, big career choices. I loved my social studies class, and I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was going to be a lawyer.
Oh,
And pretty much every decision I made between seventh grade and graduating college was around that choice. So what that actually meant was, I was going to go to law school. That's expensive, right? So I got a summer job as a lifeguard. Nowhere can you be better prepared to learn crisis communications, crisis response, than taking a job as a lifeguard, right?
sure.
And throughout the summers, as we actually did have a few saves, not a lot, but enough where I actually got to understand the impact of helping someone and someone who was hurt. That had a big impact on me because I was trying to earn money for law school, I also got a job next as a diving coach. And as a diving coach, I found I really loved motivating my team. I loved watching other people's success and cheering them on to victory. And so as I went through college, still focused because my choice was to be an attorney, I interned for the DC Public Defender Service. And it was an unpaid internship. And I got to meet people who were very, very different, whose backgrounds were very different than anything I'd grown up in. I remember sitting in a group home in Southeast DC in a neighborhood that very few of my college friends had ever been to, taking the statement from a victim of a gang rape. And as I
Oh,
listened to all of the different stories, and I was really moved. And I really did a lot of listening in that job. And, the stories were very different as I went home that night than they had looked in that case file I had gotten before going out there. And because it was an unpaid internship, long before there was anything called the gig economy or side
right.
hustles or any of that, right? I had to waitress and lifeguard and babysit and do, but I realized I could put together a path. And so when I didn't get in to Stanford Law School in April of my senior year and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, all these little choices I had made along the way really did direct and guide me. So that's how I chose to get into healthcare communications.
An amazing journey. First of all, I didn't know early on how much I didn't realize how much you wanted to be a lawyer. And you talk about something that I think is really important, those mini moments, because the stake in the ground, sure, we recognize them, but mini moments have a compound effect. And all of your mini moments have led you to be the communications leader that you are in healthcare. And you also mentioned, I lined up the show talking about characteristics of leaders. You said listening, focused, helping, motivating people, right? That those are all great qualities that you sort of learned along the way. So, oh, and I also love, Val, that isn't your husband a lawyer?
He is. And
That's funny.
it is. So I ended up marrying one instead of becoming one. But what I realized was what I wanted. So I'd wanted to be when I interned, it was for the juvenile division of the Public Defender Service,
Right.
and I thought I could be a voice for children who had no
Hmm.
one else to represent them, who had no voice. And I was young and in school, and became a little bit upset at the fact that there was no justice system, just a legal system. And it was the stories that I found really powerful. And I think that that definitely played a role. So I have no regrets
Right.
about not going into law, but I do think that, it moved me to where I needed to go.
Well, healthcare is certainly it's giving, it's caring. The stories that you guys are sharing, it's literally amazing. You and your team, when you're out there on social media, and I do want to mention that my brother Jay suffered a massive heart attack. Was at one of your hospitals, and you guys honored him at the Jets game with his story, and that was all out on social media and video, and it was beautiful. It was touching. It reminded me of the caring, that there are really good, caring people, and that the hospital and the physicians, the amazing work that they can do to save a life. And thankfully, that was my brother's life.
Oh, it was special. It was especially special to share his story because of our friendship. Um, since moment one that I got here, we call it extraordinary caring.
Mm,
And that's everything we do here. We're going for the extraordinary, not the good, not the
right.
excellent, but truly extraordinary. And I'm always shocked by how humble the nurses and the doctors and all of the team members. We have over 17,000 team members. The head of our physician enterprise, he loves to say it takes 17,000 people to care for one patient here at Atlantic. And from, your brother's story, it was a nurse who saw him first in the parking lot, the number of people.
Oh, there
In
were
fact,
so many people.
the reason we ended up creating that video, you remember you said you wanted to send a
Yes,
thank you note, but you needed a list because there
that
had
was
been all
quite the
these
list.
people involved. So we thought we'd, let them tell you because they were all thankful. That's why we're here. And so for them to see Jay, what you may not have realized, but whether it was the video, whether it was his participation as a, honorary captain at the Jets game, for his physicians to see him out there living, because most people, they get better
Right, and
and they
that's
go
it. You
back
never
into their
know.
life. Yeah.
Right.
And we hope and imagine all these wonderful things happening with them, but to get to share that, that's the why. Jay's the reason we're all there.
I'll tell you, my goosebumps have goosebumps right now. You guys definitely give extraordinary. It's extraordinary caring. I mean, that is the best way to describe it. I mentioned a little bit about leadership qualities. You have a team. I mean, I know you have a team of 17,000, but you have a team of communicators that you work
Yes.
with every day. What are some of the things that you look for in these folks who
Sure.
join your team?
Sure. So I think passion is really important. I love your feel model, and I
Thank you.
actually use a lot of those things. So when you talk about the love element and right? So
Yeah,
I think that passion for many of us, I found here, it's not just work, it's a little bit of kind of that greater why we're here. We understand a sense of purpose here.
right.
Um, we have an opportunity not only to improve the health of the communities we serve and the people we touch every day, we have an opportunity to do something really important. Um, I think what pulled me here was our CEO saying to me, we had the opportunity to create this national model of what healthcare could be. We had a chance to reinvent things.
Oh my
Really
gosh, that's
exciting.
amazing. Yep.
So that passion is super important. You talk a lot about facing your fears, and I
Hmm.
think it's really important to have that risk taking, um, that ability to take risks, to get outside of your comfort zone. So that's something I look for. Another thing you mentioned is kind of that ethics and judgment. Well, to
Yeah,
me, that's probably one of the most important things in an effective communicator. Somebody who has that spot on judgment because they are the guardians of our reputation. Um,
absolutely.
and so if you have somebody who can, have that great judgment, not be afraid to use their voice, even if
Right.
it's outside of, their specific role, but who's able to effectively communicate with proper leadership, then you can really make an important difference. So I'm fortunate, and as I'm saying each of these, I have visions in my mind of the different leaders we have here on our team, some of whom you've met, who really are spectacular.
Absolutely. I see a lot of stepping out of the comfort zone in your social media.
Mhm.
And I'm amazed at physicians, surgeons from, your hospitals who are on social media and showing things and they're showing up and it's just, I mean, that's clearly stepping out of the comfort zone. How did you empower your champions to do this? Like that is just something that, I mean, maybe all hospitals do it, maybe they don't. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. So how did you get people more involved to want to embrace social media?
Well, it's interesting because so I mentioned we have 17,000 team members here. So not surprisingly, most are on social media, right? So when
Right.
you look at all the statistics, I think Pew Research just came out with something saying that probably nearly 75% of all people in the United States are on social media. I've seen other statistics closer to 80%.
Sure.
So again, not surprisingly, a great number. Um, of our team members were on social media. And I think what's special about Atlantic is the culture here. So we're known for being a best place to work, whether it's Fortune magazine putting us on their top list of places to
Yeah.
work nationwide, modern healthcare, you name it. And it all comes from this culture of people who really care and love what they're doing and
Right.
where they're doing it. So they're proud.
I feel
I
like
didn't
you
have to
guys are
tell
a
them to be.
family. I really feel like you're a family in a sense.
Yes. I'm going to ask you to hang on one second here because My screen went down.
Oh, no.
And let's see if that brings it back. There you go. I got to remember to
Perfect.
wind everyone. Sorry about that.
No, no worries.
And yeah, so I think that a big part of that, and we have some physicians who, again, with that pride and that care in what they're doing, um, Dr. Whitman, Eric Whitman, otherwise known as Melanoma Doc on Twitter, who is one of the leading experts in cancer care, has managed to attract physicians from the leading academic and research institutions in the US. And now we're at the point where we're doing first in the world clinical trials. We're
That's really
bringing new
interesting.
research here, which is exciting to me. And, as a marketer, it's your biggest dream and challenge. Why doesn't everyone
Right.
know about the stuff being done here? Um,
Unbelievable. And
Dr.
that's
Jim
on
Wittig
Twitter.
with, yes,
That's Twitter.
yeah, melanoma doc. So, and likewise, Dr. Jim Wittig, who heads our orthopedics. We've got our cardiology, which is a top 50 program in the nation. And what I love is I follow a lot of our cardiologists on Twitter, and I have to admit I follow them, but sometimes I don't follow them because the academic conversations, and it's fun watching how they engage in the types of conversations they have that really help them to not only network with other cardiologists.
So it's doctors helping doctors.
It really is. I
They're
mean,
finding a tribe.
there are wonderful communities, physician communities on Twitter, and the head of our cardiology department, Dr. Linda Gillum, who she's one of the very few women leaders in cardiology, incredibly
I
well
feel like I met
respected.
her, Val.
Yes, yes, you
Okay.
did. She
I
actually
did.
stopped
Yeah,
by. I
she's
called her to
amazing.
make sure she
Yep.
was checking on
Wonderful.
checking in on you all. And I remember her first words to me, he's in Dr. Cosmic. His hand's great.
In great hands.
He's in great
Oh,
hands. Yes,
nice.
yes, yes.
That's
So
awesome. So you know what, Valerie? I'm just going to ask you to hold your thoughts
okay,
for a moment. We're going to shift our focus over to the sponsor of today's episode, which is Routledge Publishing. And Routledge is one of the leading publishers of textbooks and academic journals. And they also happen to be the publisher of my book right here, Answers for Modern Communicators. And Val, I know you know this because you actually wrote an excerpt in this book. But I've answered over 150
wow.
questions on building relationships and reputation and taking your content to the next level and socializing your brand. And Valerie, I thought it would be really fun if I ask you a question
Okay.
from the book and have you answer it. So your question is question number 62.
Oh, now let me see if I can remember that one. And I almost have committed it to hard.
Okay. Who is the trusted confidant, or who, you know, what does being a trusted confidant mean to you?
Wow. So whenever I think, and we talk a lot about trust and the importance of trust in healthcare, and trust is something that's earned over time. Um, and I think it's earned through actions and through experiences. When I look at trusted confidants, be it someone like you, who, 11 years of consistent actions, my CEO here um, is someone who, because of his deep integrity and again, the consistent way that he always does the right thing,
Yeah,
um, has been a big part of it.
absolutely. I mean, that consistency is so important. Always showing up
Mhm.
with your integrity and who you are, that's really going to help with who gets to be in the closer circle. I mean, you're
Yeah.
always going to have relationships, and you can only scale so many, even, whether you're on Twitter or whether it's you personally. But I do find that building that trust and how you show up is going to make the difference. So thank you for your answer, and thank you, Routledge, for being the sponsor of today's episode. Valerie, let's dive back into our discussion. So, we were chatting, it's amazing on social media
Mhm.
what the healthcare professionals at your hospitals are doing. And, you're doing a lot. There's probably a lot. You're over all the communications that you are coordinating. but at the same time, and I know you personally, you have a family, right?
I
So
do.
not only are you a C-level executive, but you have two beautiful children and a husband who we
Thank
mentioned who
you.
happens to be a lawyer, and he's a great guy. How
Excellent.
are you managing all of this
Sure.
so that you can show up every day and be at your best?
You know, it's a great question, and I think that if you're lucky enough, if you're fortunate enough to have a job that you love, to have family that you love, you need to get comfortable with the concept of sacrifice. It's
Mm,
a real thing. Like sacrifice is a real thing, and
right.
I um, I think there are some unrealistic myths of having it all in this perfect light that
It's
it's
not
important to
perfect.
be, yeah, it's
Yeah.
important to be honest. There are times when I have missed something at one of my children's school, and there are times when I've
Yeah.
missed meetings. And
So it's
I
a little
think
both.
absolutely, and I think the
Okay.
key thing is that it's all about choice, and to
Hmm.
me, that's what's really important. It goes back to that earlier theme of making sure you're empowered with the choice and that you can change choices. So I
Right.
was recently on a panel with several other women leaders in healthcare, and what surprised me was how varied their different journeys to leadership were.
Right.
So there was one woman who had taken off a few years when her kids were young, and I remember her looking at me and being like, "I never could have done what you're doing when your kids were young." There was another woman on the panel who had had a job that involved a ton of travel.
Yeah.
She had a great nanny, a great husband, great support system, and she really was able to do that in her career. Um, Everyone had these different. There was actually one woman in the room who literally ran down the hallway to give birth. Now she was in a hospital. She was a doctor. But
That's funny.
I think the important thing though is that we don't judge and that we also don't, you keep choosing. And so when it's not working, change
Yeah.
course. It's okay.
Right. You have to be happy with your
Absolutely.
choice. And if you
Absolutely.
feel uncomfortable, then why wouldn't you just pivot to try something else that might work?
And you have to realize that you're not always every single option, there is that sacrifice element. And I
Right.
think you need to get comfortable and recognize that it's because you have this abundance of riches. If I
Yeah.
didn't have the amazing opportunities that I've had from a career, if I didn't have the incredible best family in the entire world, um, I think it would be easier in some aspects, but
Right.
certainly not something I would choose, right?
No, I just remember two things that made me think twice and step back. So you know Megan, right? My
Yes,
daughter.
absolutely.
One choice that I made that made me sad, and I switched things around, was I missed her when she rode a bicycle for the first time, and that was something that was a wake up call to pivot to I'm an entrepreneur, I can design my day, for goodness sakes, like there's certain times when I can be around, and I know I shifted my schedule. Another time, and this never happened again because I put my foot down at work. I did have to go into the office. I had a marketing agency, and you have to pick up your child at daycare by 6 o'clock,
Yep.
and if you don't, you feel horrible, because not only do the ladies give you a hard time because they all need to go somewhere and you have to pay extra, but your child,
Yep.
the look on Megan's face was just, she was heartbroken. And that made me heartbroken. And that's when I said, you know what, actually the sacrifice is all you people at work. I'm leaving, and figure it out, and I'm
Yep.
going to go spend time with my daughter. And from, I think from then on, from 6 until about 9 o'clock
Yep.
was Megan time. And after nine
That's
o'clock, then I sacrificed free time to go back to work
yep.
and do whatever. And it
uh,
worked.
And that's great. And I think that, anyone who knows the two of you and has seen the two of you together knows that the story turned out, you had that great recipe. So,
Thank you. Thank you. It
so
did.
that's good
She is a
advice.
best friend. There's no
Yep.
doubt about it. And you have a daughter too, and a
Yep.
son, and
Yep.
they're your best friends. It's
Ab-
great.
Absolutely. It's
That's so
very
good.
special.
So Valerie, do you ever get, and maybe this is a challenge because in healthcare, you're dealing with lives. There's
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Do you ever get stressed? I mean, is stress
sure.
a thing? I'm sure doctors get stressed. You're working with doctors, you're coordinating a team. How do you guys manage that?
So I don't know anyone in the field of communications, in the field, let alone in the field of healthcare, who doesn't have stressors
Right.
in their lives,
You would
right?
be lying.
Of course. And I think it is in how you handle stress. I talked about choices before and them guiding you places. And sometimes it's also making the wrong choice, right? Reacting in a way that you went and all that really does change you, and help
Yeah.
you to grow and build. I've certainly had my fair share of those. I think what's been really helpful to me, one of my dear friends, who's actually president of Morristown Medical Center, which I can't say without saying New Jersey's #1 hospital because
Of
U.S. News
course.
Report, everyone says that. But
Congratulations.
Trish, who is, she started there as a nurse over 30 years ago, and she now is the president. And she says to
I
me
love that.
that her whole career has been built around the cornerstones of the concept of resiliency, that art
Mm,
of bouncing back.
yep.
And she shares how, she uses that analogy of the rubber band, right? So that it pulls back and gets tense in those times, and
Right.
then it releases back and it gets back to its normal shape. And you have to get comfortable with kind of both ends of it. I actually recently gave one of my colleagues, he was looking a little stressed, and I gave him a rubber band and I kind of shared Trisha's things. And he said to me, Val, I still have this rubber band on. And he showed me.
Right.
Um, but it's great. One of the great things about being in healthcare is because there is this heightened awareness, because things can be life and death, and there is a sense of urgency, and 24/7 stuff is going on. Um, we do a lot of work around resiliency, both
Mhm.
for physicians, but also for all team members. And I think that's been really helpful in kind of continued growth, and it's something you have to work on.
Absolutely. So is that something that you guys focus on? Is there a lot of professional development within the team? I mean, not even just in communications, but even beyond.
Absolutely. So system wide, Dr. Peter Bolo, who is amazing, heads up a resiliency group, and he's uh, a psychiatrist who really has embraced kind of these concepts and able to help our team members. So a lot of times, whether it's, he recently spoke at a leadership development meeting
Great.
that we had, over 400 leaders, managers, directors, et cetera, from across the whole system there. Something we pay a lot of attentions to because it's a real thing, and resiliency is so important, um, in healthcare, but also just in life.
In life. Absolutely. Valerie, how do you stay up to date and keep yourself in the know? You're a leader in communications and healthcare. What are some of the resources that just feed your soul
Sure.
and keep you sort of where you need to be?
Sure. So I have long lists of whether it's, everything from, your PRSA and Comprobiz and kind of industry
Yeah,
organizations. Then in healthcare, modern healthcare has been terrific for me. Not only the information that I gather, I speak at their marketing communications conference every year
great.
for the last couple of years, and the network, um, around there. I have colleagues at other health systems who are in roles similar to me. And I love getting to talk to them because I always find that there are certain things that they are a step ahead and certain things that I'm actually a step ahead. And that's kind
That's
of exciting.
great. That's
But
really exciting.
it's nice to kind of feel that camaraderie. I think that's
Absolutely.
real important. I have more podcasts than I ever can get to, that are bookmarked. Women
Me too.
Worldwide is a great one, though, to give me some inspiration,
Thank you.
and that collegiality of that, sisterhood that's really nice too.
That's awesome. Valerie, I can't even believe that we're going to round out this episode with an advice question. So what can you share with all those listeners out there about being a leader in what they do and good communication?
I think if there's one bit of advice, it's stay true to yourself. Know your true north. Um, when you get steered off course, come back. But most importantly, be true to yourself. I always strive to be. Doesn't mean I always hit. I always strive to be the person that my daughter is going to be proud of, that my
Oh,
grandma would be proud of,
of course.
and that my boss, who our CEO, is one of the, I said to you beforehand. I mean, I just feel incredibly lucky and humbled to know this leader, let alone have the opportunity to work for him. And you want to do proud, you want to do good by the people who matter the most to you. Um, so I do think the most important thing is stay true to yourself. And if you find that things aren't going, don't be afraid to shift things. We have done our student chat, and the one thing I always tell students is that once you graduate, the semester doesn't necessarily end,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And so you have
So,
to make a conscious decision to change the direction. And it's not always easy, but I think it's important.
oh, those choices. And I love your advice. Stay true to yourself, your true north. Valerie, where can people find out more about you and Atlantic Health System?
Very easy, atlantichealth.org. So,
That's so easy.
atlantichealth.org, which is our website, which is constantly evolving and changing, and one of my deep passions, is an exciting place. And, of course, Atlantic Health and I are also on everything from LinkedIn to Twitter. Those are
So
also good places to connect.
fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was wonderful to have you show up, share from your heart, your mind. I love what you're doing. Thank you for your time and your
Thank
advice.
you. Well, it's always great to get to spend time together. So
Oh my
thank you.
gosh. Yes, it is. Thank you. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into Women Worldwide. Please keep your feedback coming. It helps us so much. You can tweet me. I'm at Dee Breckenridge. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel and please leave a comment there or sign up for updates on the Women Worldwide Show website. Thank you. And until our next episode, friends, stay focused, energized, and feeling empowered. Thank you.